Welcome to the Political Insider. You will know that we have been following the goings-on in the Ministry of Tourism quite extensively on the Political Insider. And suddenly, when yet another scandal erupted, I thought and saw an article written by somebody that we know very well. Had to get him on the show, and that is Wayne Duvenage from OUTA. Wayne, welcome to the Political Insider.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, as I said in the intro, we've been following the goings-on in the Ministry of Tourism. Originally, it was a story about SA Tourism that seemed to be doing some very suspect deals. Mm-hmm. Then there was another one. Then there's a question mark around boards being dissolved, questionable speakers being appointed, and I see your article. Do you have a sense of what's going on in the Ministry of Tourism?
Yeah, we do. I do. I mean, I've come out of the tourism industry, sat on the tourism marketing board, and understand the goings on at SA Tourism. So, and it's not about me; it's about OUTA. Why are we in this capacity, commenting on this? And what we saw 2 Sundays ago from the Sunday Times was an article that questioned the conduct of the minister and raised the concern around a board that's under threat, and there were some serious issues that the board was trying to deal with. So this is quite concerning for us because as OUTA, we see far too many boards of state entities that look away, that have political agendas. People are put in those boards not to ruffle the feathers of the chief executive officers and the CFOs, not to be too hard on them. And that's how corruption and maladministration thrives. And it frustrates us. And we really get frustrated with boards that don't practice or conduct good oversight. So when you see a board that is trying to do its work, that is not filled with political cadres and people that are there to do the bidding or drive the agenda of the minister. On the SA Tourism Board, these are people with integrity. They are business leaders. They don't need the money. They don't sit on those boards for any other reason that they have the success and the growth of the tourism industry at heart. And these are people in executive positions in business out there. And people like Lawson Naidoo, who's a stalwart for good governance. So that's great. We see, and why are they under attack? There's something doesn't sound right. And then when you see the CEO, who they really need to hold to account, not only just on what they're seeing, what the Auditor-General has reported on, what an independent forensic report has reported on, which was quite scathing, and said this individual, the CEO, needs to be held accountable. Disciplinary action needs to take place. And then the chairperson suddenly resigns on the 31st of July. What's going on? So I inquired with business leaders inside the industry, various association members, to get insights. We don't just jump in. It seemed wrong, and then the more we dug and looked, the more we saw this is crazy. This is a minister practicing political overreach, interference like you cannot believe. She has a board to do the oversight, and she's just removing the board and not dealing with the substance. Then you find out things, Mark, like the board had a vote of no confidence in the chair, who was Professor Davids, who was not carrying out the duties, because it's through the chair that the minister is kept in line with what, in tune and informed what's happening. It's through the chair that you get the concurrence of the minister to remove the CEO or to exercise disciplinary action. And he wasn't fulfilling his role. Now, the board starts to look inefficient when that happens. So they had a vote of no confidence in him, sent a letter to the minister on the 17th of July saying, Minister, we regret to inform this is what's happened. Not one or two members of the board. The entire board has got a vote of no confidence in this chair. And this is why. They give all the reasons. We need you to please replace him temporarily with an acting whatever. You need to do something here. And what does she do? Nothing. Then 2 weeks later, on the last day, the chair resigns. Now, the chair she appointed, the board didn't have any say about who should be the chair. So he resigns. The heat is on in the kitchen. He decides this is the easiest way out. She could have straight away. I think she knew a day or two before he was going. I would imagine she was informed. Nonetheless, even before that, 2 weeks when she got this no vote in her conference, she could have appointed an acting chair immediately. By the way, she was supposed to have appointed a deputy chair 9 months prior to. She didn't fulfill her fiduciary duties there. Kept obfuscating that question in Parliament on Tuesday. So now you say, well, why didn't you do all of these things? And instead of saying, okay, I need to buy time, I need to engage with this board across the table. No. Let me appoint an acting chair quickly while we deal with this. Within a couple of days, she meets with the TBCSA, who also point out to her, Tourism Business Council, this doesn't look right. People like Satsa, David Frost on those boards are saying, Minister, something's wrong here. Just engage with this board first before you do anything. She says she's going to. And that same night, after she's engaged with the TBS, Tourism Business Council board, and says, yes, you'll engage with the board, she issues letters of dismissal. I mean, what is going on? Why not engage with the board and say, tell me what's going on here? So very hasty. And then we hear afterwards, more and more stories about interference, working directly with the executives in tourism, SA tourism, and just sidelining the board, not involving the board in strategy discussions, nothing. Well, quite frankly, this is disgusting. This is not the type of minister we need for an industry. It's a small budget, 7.5 billion, but it's a very important budget. And if we get the marketing of tourism better and right, and that hasn't been the case under the current CEO.
So let's just sketch. The CEO in question is Nombolelo Galiwa, who's, as you said, the Auditor-General has flagged some very dodgy dealings.
Remember, she was the CFO prior to getting this role.
Yeah, there was a question of 100 million rand tender given to a company called Palm Express that had only just been appointed, who then took over Meetings Africa and Tourism in Durban and managed. These are two legacy events that have always been very popular for the tourism and meetings industry. That was a disaster. And then there was also a question mark around a tourism monitors program, basically providing security in certain tourist hotspots. And the contract goes to somebody who's not even in the region.
In that area, yeah.
And so the Auditor-General flagged both of those. And there was talk of the firing of the board would actually provide cover for the CEO.
Well, it appears that way. So, Mike, in situations like this, as the late Praveen Gordhan said, just join the dots. Something doesn't look right. Nowhere along the line have we heard her dealing with the substance of the issue here. This issue is around the leadership of the South African tourism entity. And the decisions that were being made and contracts being signed, payments being made, 50% up front. It's taboo. You don't do that. PFMA says you can't do that. And so all along it's the board, and I've written to the board and warned them this and that. Well, it's actually a chairperson, and your board is now substantiated. There are issues with the board, but it's the chairperson who was the problem. So you've got a bunch of experts here. You chose them, and they're good people. Just engage with them first. So when you start seeing this irrational behavior, and she says, in her, she's saying, yeah, but the CEO still remains suspended. I'm not defending her. Let the next board deal with that. No, Minister. That is the entire issue. Disciplinary action needs to flow. This board is trying to do that. They've done nothing wrong. You're hinging on a technicality around, well, they had a meeting without a chairperson. I mean, I love to see how that plays out in the court, because the board that has been dismissed is taking her to court. The previous board is already in court with her. So there's, in the space of just over a year, 2 boards gone, both of them taking her on in court. I'm afraid this minister is out of line.
Yeah, and obviously she's part of the Government of National Unity, representing the Good Party, which one seat party, and she's there. It's a second. She was in the previous government, even though there was no Government of National Unity. Clearly a favorite of President Ramaphosa. He likes to keep her around, and I think we're starting to see why. There was also a question mark. She had appointed this guy, Aldrin Sampier, as her spokesperson, who's a journalist who was caught on camera beating up another motorist and then admitted to beating up his girlfriends and so on and so forth, and issued a groveling apology. But, I'd imagine if you're in government, let's not appoint people like that. Although one has to say the ANC have been quite fond of women beaters, so maybe it is GBV. They're proponents of that. But where to from here? Do we just have to wait? Tell us about the hearing that happened recently in Parliament.
Yeah, look, she got grilled, and she had no friends in that portfolio committee, not one. When I listened to most of it, I listened to the input from the board. It was very, very telling and very interesting because a lot of depth in there. And the previous board that are in court with her on her interfering conduct. So where to from here? Well, there are these two cases. This week, a day ago, the outgoing board, the board that has been fired, have filed papers. By the way, two of those board members who were standing with this entire board were asked by their company heads, pull back, don't participate in this. And I just want to make a point about that. These are big businesses that don't like to fight with government. I've said this a number of times. This big business fear of challenging government when it's right to do so and not doing so, I worry about. I really worry about that. Those shareholders or senior companies, the shareholders of the companies that those two represented on the board were in unison with the entire board, should have left them there. You leave those people. You don't pull them out because you don't want to, because you're scared of the message that goes to the minister that, hey, X company, why are your people challenging me? You need to man up and say, well, minister, they are there. Ask them. They are there for a reason. And we're not going to pull them back because it suits you or because you're thinking bad of us. Let the rule of law flow. If you're wrong, you're wrong. You need to deal with it. If you're right, then we will apologize. Well, that board will ask them to apologize. But sadly, these two big companies, big tourism companies, pull these two out. It does weaken this matter a little bit, but nonetheless, it's still the majority of the board. Those papers were filed. So where to from here? Well, if I was the president, I would be taking an interest in this matter. It's serious. If this is a job-creating, foreign revenue income entity, when you think of tourism in South Africa, just compare ourselves, I've said this before, to Australia, who gets more tourists than us. And they've got a rock and a kangaroo and a barrier reef, quite frankly, and they are on the arse end of the world. It takes ages to fly there from Europe. Overnight, you're in South Africa. We've got diversity, flora, fauna, beauty, people, everything going for us. And we can't outpunch Australia in tourists. This is crazy. So we've got a lot of work to do to market and train and develop our tourism industry, working with business. This is not how you do it. So as a president, I'd be serious about it. And as the president, he has fired people for far less offenses. I mean, Andrew Whitfield for not getting approval on a travel trip. Well, this is a person doing damage, not just myself and a few people. If the president goes and gets an independent research into what's unfolding here and her conduct prior to and in other spaces, I think he'll quickly get the message that Patricia de Lille is not the type of person you want to head up any ministry, certainly one that we need to grow our economy. So that's what should happen. I doubt it's going to happen. I don't think the president is going to pay much attention because, as you say, there are other political agendas at play, and it may suit him to keep her there for the wrong reason, certainly not for the country, the betterment of the country's reason. It'll be a political decision.
Yeah, and that's because her one-seat party forms part of the government of national unity. It makes it look like a bigger entity than the straightforward coalition that it is, and it puts a nice political skin on this. But at the end of it all, taxpayer money is being wasted here.
Yeah,
and
more
court cases, and I take exception to what you said, where you said it's a small budget department. when last I checked, 7.5 billion rand was still a lot of money.
Yeah, it is. I mean, relative to how it can impact the economy.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we discussed, the billions that were being wasted, 21 billion being wasted at CETAs. So, I do understand your point that it's still
a lot
money
of
that's being wasted. And most importantly, there's a massive opportunity cost here. As you mentioned, South Africa is punching way below its weight in terms of tourism. And it is one industry that is quite people heavy. It is a great job creator.
Yeah, and lots of females and people in rural areas. And a service industry is powerful in job creation. And if you can grow that, and business works with government, by the way, the tourism levy that business charges is managed by a business and handed over, and they work very closely with SA Tourism. So when there's a symbiotic, great relationship, I tell you, it works. We've seen it work. But when it doesn't work, so under Derek Hanekom, he was a minister of tourism engaged with the industry. And not this one-way communication, hear me, this is how it should be, lecturing style, autocratic, and then leaves. Really engages to find out what's best for the industry at large. And how do we work harder to transform the industry? Because we know it's an industry that also requires transformation, and business knows that. And there's a journey that's being undertaken here. So her conduct is just doing us no favors, and we're going to lose opportunities. And the international travel industry sees this and watches this, and we are competing with the Thailands, the Vietnams of the world, so many other destination marketing countries that are going to love this, because these companies that build these big tour packages just say, we don't know what's happening here. Your tourism trade show that we go to is a mess. It's a debacle. You hear the exhibitors complaining. You don't need that. Why do you have a CEO who's just so weak for this role? Why was she appointed in the first place? That is not what we should be doing.
Yeah, it follows the well-worn trend of putting weak ministers in charge of what feels like not important portfolios, but in actual fact, it's a serious portfolio. Right. It's a serious one in terms of employment and for the country. Wayne, just in closing, there was a parliamentary hearing this week. What's the time frame? What's the expectation after the hearing? What happens next?
I think in Parliament, the committee then caucuses, discusses their views. They discuss the responses from both parties, the board members and the minister and others. They come to some conclusions and also note the objections to whatever. But I think the committee needs to file a report to the president and give their recommendations. And from what I could see, I think it's going to be quite a scathing one against her, because she wasn't answering the questions. She was dancing around the questions. She was obfuscating some of the obvious ones, taking ages to not. Some of those questions were direct yes or no, and wasn't answering. So. And then the president needs to make a decision, and what I can sense will happen. It'll just go quiet. He'll make no decision, possibly, and we live on. Then now it's down to the court. So now the courts might, and this has happened before, where the Popo Molefe took Deputy Peters on in court when she fired that board. Similar thing. This board under Popo Molefe put into PRASA was taking on Collins Letswala and others, dealing with governance issues. Well, that didn't suit the relationship between the politicians and what was happening inside. So Deputy Peters fires them for no valid reason. Just, I've got these powers, I can do it. Rightfully took them to court, and they were reinstated. Oh, that's good. I like that. And that's what this board has done. Said, hold on. No, they don't need to do this. They're busy people. They've got jobs, but they're doing it on principle. And every one of those board members needs to be commended. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but on the face of things, I think the minister's got a very weak case. So if the board then forces her to reinstate, well, now you've got an unhealthy relationship. Unhealthy. I mean, how's the minister work with the board that you had to go to court to be reinstated? Well, that's then the trigger then for the president. If he doesn't make a decision before then, he has to say, okay, you were out of alignments. The court has ruled. Public opinion has ruled. Everything I see, all the performance scorecard issues that you're supposed to deliver on is not delivering. Off you go. Let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see. The minister came out saying that she did not dismiss the board in order to save the CEO from getting the chop. We'll have to see what happens. Everybody's suspended. Everybody's fired. It's just a mess at a very important Ministry of Tourism. Clearly, there's a lot more that's going to come out of this story. But it's time that these ministers, especially from these small parties that are in this government of national unity, they have to up their game or get the hell out of there. Wayne Duvenage, thank you so much for spreading shedding some light on this. And to everybody that enjoyed this on the Political Insider, please subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.